Something broke inside Hudson and Rex the moment Charlie Hudson disappeared. Not slowly, not quietly. It happened in a way that left fans shocked, confused, and honestly, furious. For 7 seasons, Charlie Hudson wasn't just another detective on a procedural show. He was the heart of the story, the human connection behind every case, the reason many fans tuned in week after week. And then suddenly, without the kind of farewell that a character like Charlie deserved, he was simply gone. No emotional goodbye. No real closure. Just silence where the soul of the show used to be. And that silence is exactly what turned a loyal fan base into one of the angriest audiences television has seen in years. For a long time, Hudson and Rex was one of those rare shows that felt stable. Viewers knew what they were getting every season. A strong partnership between Detective Charlie Hudson and his loyal canine partner Rex. A mix of mystery, action, and something even more important, warmth. The kind of warmth that comes from characters who genuinely feel like they belong together. Charlie Hudson, played by John Reardon, became the emotional anchor of that world. He wasn't just solving crimes. He was the character that tied everything together. His bond with Rex felt authentic. His interactions with the rest of the team gave the show personality. And over 7 seasons, fans grew deeply attached to that dynamic. 7 seasons is a long time in television. It's long enough for a character to become part of people's routines. Viewers don't just watch a show like that casually anymore. They invest in it. They follow the characters through victories, losses, friendships, and changes. And by the time a show reaches that point, the audience expects one thing above all else: respect for the journey they've taken together. But what happened next felt like the opposite of respect. When news began spreading that Charlie Hudson would no longer be part of the series, confusion quickly turned into disbelief. Fans assumed there must be a major storyline coming. Maybe a dramatic farewell. Maybe a powerful final arc that would give Charlie the send-off he deserved after leading the show for so many years. Instead, the information that slowly surfaced painted a very different picture. Behind the scenes, John Reardon had been facing a serious health battle. He had been diagnosed with tonsil cancer, something that understandably forced him to step away from the show for treatment and recovery. It was the kind of real-life situation that usually brings audiences together in support. Fans weren't angry about the actor taking time to heal. In fact, many were hoping the production would simply pause or wait until he was ready to return. But that is not what happened. Instead of holding the door open for the man who had carried the show for 7 years, the producers decided to move forward without him. And the way the transition unfolded only made things worse. Promotional material for the next season began appearing. Posters, trailers, announcements, and suddenly there was a new detective front and center. Mark Hudson, played by Luke Roberts. Just like that, the original Charlie Hudson was gone. There was no long explanation to the audience, no heartfelt farewell episode, no moment that allowed viewers to properly process what had happened. The character who had defined the series for nearly a decade had essentially been erased from the spotlight overnight. For fans who had followed Hudson and Rex since the beginning, this felt deeply unsettling. Television audiences understand that shows evolve, characters leave, new ones arrive, but there is a difference between evolution and replacement. And what happened here felt very much like a replacement. The reaction online was immediate. Social media feeds filled with confused messages. Longtime viewers asking the same question again and again: why would the show move on so quickly from the very character that made it work? Many fans were especially upset because of the circumstances. Knowing that John Reardon had been dealing with cancer made the decision feel colder than it might have otherwise. To a large portion of the audience, it looked like a loyal actor had fought a serious health battle, only to return and find the role he built waiting for someone else. That emotional layer changed everything. Instead of simply being a casting change, Charlie's disappearance became a symbol of something bigger, something personal, something that felt unfair. And once that feeling began spreading through the fan base, the situation around Hudson and Rex quickly turned from disappointment into full-blown outrage. Because for many viewers, losing Charlie Hudson didn't just change the show. It broke the trust between the series and the audience that had supported it for years. When Season 8 of Hudson and Rex finally arrived, many fans were still hoping for one thing: They hoped the show would acknowledge what had happened to Charlie Hudson in a meaningful way. After all, this was a character who had led the series for 7 seasons. Viewers expected a story that would respect that history. Even if Charlie was truly gone, fans believed the show would at least give him a proper ending. But what they got instead left many people feeling even more frustrated. The explanation for Charlie's disappearance felt rushed, vague, and emotionally empty. Instead of giving the character a powerful goodbye, the show moved past his absence in a way that felt strangely casual. One moment Charlie was missing, and the next moment conversations began hinting that he was gone for good. There was no detailed story about what happened. No long emotional arc where the team tried to find him, no final chapter that honored the journey fans had watched for years. For many viewers, it felt like the show was trying to close the door on Charlie as quickly as possible, and that decision did not sit well with the audience. Television history shows that fans can accept change if it is handled with care. Characters leave shows all the time, but the key difference is how the story treats them on the way out. When a beloved character exits properly, the audience gets time to process the loss. They get closure. They get a moment that says, this person mattered. Season 8 didn't really offer that moment. Instead, the story quickly shifted its focus toward the new detective, Mark Hudson. Played by Luke Roberts, Mark was introduced as the fresh face of the team, someone who would now step into the role once held by Charlie. The problem was that the audience wasn't ready for that shift. In fact, many fans weren't ready to accept it at all. This created an extremely difficult situation for Luke Roberts. Replacing a beloved lead actor is already one of the hardest challenges an actor can face. But in this case, the circumstances made it even tougher. Fans weren't just reacting to a new character, they were reacting to the feeling that the old one had been pushed aside. And that feeling hung over the entire season. Every episode of Season 8 seemed to remind viewers of what was missing. The chemistry that once existed between Charlie and Rex had been one of the show's biggest strengths. Their partnership felt natural, almost effortless. Rex wasn't just a police dog. With Charlie, he felt like a true partner. Without that connection, the tone of the series began to shift. Some viewers described the new season as colder. Others said the show suddenly felt more like a standard procedural drama. The warmth that once defined Hudson and Rex seemed harder to find. Even the small character moments that used to make the show feel personal began to feel different. It wasn't necessarily because the stories were worse. The bigger issue was emotional continuity. Fans had spent 7 seasons building a connection with one version of the show. And now they were being asked to accept a completely different version almost overnight. That sudden shift created a feeling that many longtime viewers struggled to shake. Instead of feeling like the show was evolving naturally, it felt like something essential had been removed. And the numbers began to reflect that. Ratings started slipping. Online discussions became more negative. Fan forums filled with debates about whether the show had made the right decision. On platforms like IMDb, reviews began appearing that openly criticized the direction of the series. Again and again, viewers expressed the same frustration. They didn't just miss Charlie Hudson, they felt the show had failed to respect the character's legacy. What made the situation even more complicated was that the backlash wasn't fading with time. Normally, television controversies cool down after a few weeks. Audiences move on, adjust to new characters, and eventually accept the changes. But that didn't seem to be happening here. Instead, the anger inside the fanbase kept growing. The more people talked about Charlie's exit, the more the story behind it spread across social media. Fans who hadn't even watched Season 8 yet were already hearing about the controversy. Some viewers decided not to start the new season at all. Others watched a few episodes and then walked away. And slowly, a new narrative began forming around Hudson and Rex. Instead of being known as the feel-good detective show with the amazing canine partner, the series was now being talked about as the show that removed its lead character in the middle of a real-life health battle. Whether that description was completely fair or not, didn't really matter anymore. Because once a fanbase starts to feel betrayed, repairing that trust becomes incredibly difficult. And by the time Season 8 reached its final episodes, one thing had become very clear. The Charlie Hudson controversy was no longer just a casting change. It had become a turning point for the entire show. What happened after Season 8 aired was something the producers of Hudson and Rex may not have fully expected. At first, the reaction looked like the kind of backlash that many shows experience when a major character leaves. Fans complained online, critics questioned the creative direction, and social media filled with debates about whether the change had been a mistake. Normally, this kind of outrage burns hot for a few weeks and then slowly disappears as viewers adjust to the new reality of the show. But this time, the anger didn't fade. Instead, it grew stronger. For many longtime viewers, Charlie Hudson's exit felt like more than just a story decision. It felt personal. These fans had spent years watching the character grow, building a connection not only with the show, but with the actor behind the role. When people discovered the full story surrounding John Reardon's health battle and the timing of the casting change, the situation suddenly looked much more serious in the eyes of the audience. To them, it seemed like the show had turned its back on someone who had given it 7 years of dedication. And that idea spread quickly across the fan community. Social media became the center of the conversation. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit filled with posts from viewers who were openly questioning the producer's decision. Some fans were heartbroken, others were angry, but almost everyone seemed to agree on one thing: Charlie Hudson deserved a better ending than the one he received. The discussion soon moved beyond simple criticism. It turned into organized action. On sites like IMDb, the rating for Hudson and Rex began to drop as more and more disappointed viewers left reviews explaining why they were unhappy. Many of those reviews carried the same message. Fans wrote that the show no longer felt like the series they had supported for years. They described Season 8 as empty, rushed, and emotionally disconnected from the past seasons. Some reviews even urged other viewers to stop watching until the producers acknowledged the situation. But the online reaction was only part of the story. In an unusual move for a television fandom, many fans began organizing petitions, asking the producers to bring John Reardon back or at least give Charlie Hudson a proper conclusion. These petitions quickly gathered thousands of signatures. The message behind them was clear: the audience wasn't ready to move on. Letters were also sent directly to the network and the production company behind the show. Instead of quick tweets or angry comments, fans took the time to write detailed messages explaining why Charlie's story mattered so much to them. For the people running Hudson and Rex, this level of dedication from the fan base was both impressive and worrying. Because when fans care this deeply, their reaction can shape the future of a series. And by this point, the backlash had already begun affecting the show's reputation. Articles discussing the controversy started appearing across entertainment websites. Online commentators began analyzing the situation, asking whether the producers had underestimated how attached viewers were to Charlie Hudson. Even people who had never watched the show before were hearing about the drama. Suddenly, Hudson and Rex wasn't just a detective series anymore. It had become a case study in how difficult it can be to replace a beloved lead character. At the center of that conversation was Luke Roberts and his character, Mark Hudson. Unfortunately for him, the anger from fans often landed directly on the new detective. Many viewers admitted they simply couldn't accept Mark as Charlie's replacement, no matter how hard the show tried to establish him. To be fair, this placed Luke Roberts in a nearly impossible situation. Any actor stepping into a role under those circumstances would face enormous pressure. The problem wasn't necessarily his performance. The real issue was the emotional gap left behind by Charlie's departure. And that gap continued to dominate every discussion about the show. Instead of talking about new storylines or exciting cases, the fan community kept returning to the same topic again and again. Charlie Hudson. What happened to him? Why was his story ended so abruptly? And why didn't the show give him the farewell that someone with 7 seasons of history deserved? These questions refused to go away. Even months after Season 8 finished airing, the controversy was still one of the most discussed aspects of Hudson and Rex. New viewers who discovered the show online often encountered the debate before they even started watching. For a series that had once built its reputation on warmth and loyalty, this new atmosphere felt very different. And while the producers might have hoped that time would calm the situation, the reality was becoming harder to ignore. Because the fanbase wasn't calming down. If anything, it was preparing for the next chapter of the story. And that chapter would arrive with the announcement of something that changed the stakes completely. Season 9. And now everything leads to one unavoidable question: what happens next? Because Season 9 of Hudson and Rex is no longer a rumor. Filming has already wrapped, which means the show is moving forward whether the fans are ready or not. The producers clearly believe the series can survive this storm. They believe the audience will eventually accept the new direction and continue watching the story unfold. But right now, that future feels more uncertain than ever. The truth is, television history is full of shows that tried to replace a beloved character and struggled to recover. Sometimes audiences eventually adjust. Sometimes a new character slowly wins people over. But other times, the damage is simply too deep, and the connection between the show and its viewers never fully heals. That is the risk Hudson and Rex is facing today. For 7 seasons, Charlie Hudson wasn't just the lead detective, he represented the heart of the show. His partnership with Rex created the emotional foundation that made the series stand out from other crime dramas. And when that foundation suddenly disappeared, many fans felt like the show they loved disappeared with it. Now Season 9 has the impossible job of proving that the story can still move forward. Can the show rebuild the trust it lost? Can the new version of the team finally find its rhythm? Or will the anger and disappointment from Season 8 continue to follow the series into its next chapter? No one really knows the answer yet. What we do know is this: fans haven't forgotten Charlie Hudson. The conversations online, the petitions, the reviews, and the endless debates all prove one thing. This character mattered more than the producers may have realized. And sometimes in television, when a character matters that much, their absence becomes impossible to ignore. So as Season 9 approaches, the stakes for Hudson and Rex have never been higher. This could be the season that proves the show can survive the controversy, or the season that confirms the moment Charlie Hudson left was the moment everything changed. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Hudson and Rex can recover after Charlie's shocking exit? Or do you believe the show made a mistake it may never fix? Let me know what you think.